It's been a long time since I've made a long form video, but I've got my emotional support coffee this morning, and I hope you have your emotional support beverage as well. So let's just snuggle in and have a little chat. It's been 1 year almost. September 11th will be 1 year since my autism diagnosis. And I made a funny little short, which that's really all I've been making lately is funny little shorts, because that's all I have the brain capacity for. But I made a funny little short lately about like how things are going since my diagnosis. And I gotta say, not great. Is it because of my diagnosis? No, not necessarily. Life would just be lifing, as the kids say. But in my particular case, I do think that the diagnosis has had some effect on, obviously, how I live my life, how I view things, the lens in which I view things. And things have really not gotten a lot better since the diagnosis. I think most people would hope that, oh, now I know, and life will be easier. But there's no support. And, you know, G.I. Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle. Knowing what to do about it is the other half that we really don't get much help with. And this line of thinking of like, you know, where am I now? How have things been going? Has really kind of inspired another thought process. And I'm not the only person to have said this, but it's the fact that in order to obtain an autism diagnosis or an ADHD diagnosis, you really have to be struggling. The diagnosis criteria is based on deficits. People that are thriving in their lives, that have found ways to make accommodations for themselves, who are not really struggling with the things that would be considered diagnostic criteria, they are not necessarily likely to receive a diagnosis. And I think that's a fundamental problem that we have in the way that we view neurodivergence in general, the general public view of neurodivergence, and how we as neurodivergents are kind of told to view ourselves even after getting this diagnosis. Diagnostic criteria aside, knowing that my brain works differently has been invaluable for me. Getting that diagnosis was worth it, because I do hear a lot of people ask, you know, why bother in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond to get a diagnosis when there's really no help. There's really no accommodations for you. There's no specific care that will be provided to you. It's a huge expense. You know, why bother? And for me, I guess the answer was, well, one, a psychiatrist told me to go get an assessment after I got my ADHD assessment. She's like, you know, I think you might want to look at this too, but I'm not qualified to diagnose it for you. But it had been years before that of me kind of questioning things. And it was after realizing my grandson's autism. Before we even went to get his diagnosis, I knew that he was autistic. Same with my child, even though, you know, 20 some years ago, getting her a diagnosis was impossible. I was trying to get a doctor to look at her for pervasive developmental disorder, because that was the only thing I could find any information on that fit what she was doing. The violent, angry meltdowns as an infant, you know, grabbing her hair, throwing herself back on the floor, things like that. This was just impossible for her to get a diagnosis at that age. So the question of why do it when there's really no benefit to you? There is a huge benefit to you, because it gives you self-understanding. You do kind of have that validation that, oh, okay, so all of these problems that I had that I thought was just a personality flaw, or a lack of motivation, or a lack of willpower, or or inability, you know, a fundamental flaw within myself. They're not fundamental flaws. They're actually part of my neurotype. And that in itself has been invaluable. But the question of, has it increased the quality of my life? The answer would have to be no. It has not. It has not increased the quality of my life in any capacity. And in some ways, I think it has kind of led to a sense of learned helplessness in some areas. And boy, I do hate that word, learned helplessness. It really is an awful thing. to admit to, but we do that. I think as humans in general, and not just neurodivergence, people in general have the capacity to have learned helplessness, and it's because it's situational. It's your life. You know, you feel like you have reached a point where you are not able to function. You are overwhelmed. You are not able to move forward, and not everyone has the ability to bootstrap it and, you know, pull up your britches and just do better. It's just, that's just not the case. And in my particular case, the addition of the chronic illness and the weight gain and perimenopause and all of these other factors on top of an autism diagnosis led to many more problems than I had a year ago. And while I have gotten the diagnosis for the neurodivergence, I've got the diagnosis autism, ADHD, I also got diagnosed with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. And I do think that having that autism diagnosis helped me to get the physical diagnosis for hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, because that is a very common comorbidity. You know, of course, I've had to meet the criteria for the physical diagnosis, but I think that in my mind, at least, I don't know if that weighed in on the doctor's mind at all, but made absolute sense why I have struggled with so many things physically recently. Anyway, back to the emotional support coffee, because I feel like I'm just rambling and there's not a whole lot of point to this video, and I'm very sorry about that. And the recording quality is awful. And, you know, honestly, I just don't care. I just don't care. I'm sorry. If you're watching this, this is me. My bad. I can't put more effort into it than this, because, honestly, I'm just freaking exhausted. Life has been lifing pretty damn hard. And I'm doing the best I can to keep up and keep lighthearted. So if you just see a bunch of funny videos from me in the form of shorts and not a lot of long form content, understand that's why. And that's where I'm at with life right now. I am just trying to make the best of every single day, and I'm trying to move myself forward in whatever capacity that I can, but it's very difficult sometimes, and it's very difficult to look forward for me. That's something I was thinking about last night too, is just, you know, having a 5-year plan or looking ahead to, like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Because this is a pivotal time for me. You know, perimenopause, my kids are grown, they're out of the house, I'm kind of coming into a new version of self, but it's very hard to form that version of self or to look forward with any anticipation or to feel like something great is going to happen for me or that I have the best years of my life ahead of me. When, like, genetically and family history wise, I don't know how much time I have left. Like, most of my family, my parents, did not make it beyond like 65. So I'm 47. That means I probably don't have another 20 years left. So, and that's not cynicism or doom or catastrophizing or any of that. That's just looking at the reality, at the real pattern of my family history, of my genetics. And yes, I know epigenetics, I can change things. I'm not them, yada, yada, yada. But in reality, I probably don't have 20 years left. So it makes it very hard for me to kind of look forward and go, oh, wow, I've got all these great things ahead of me and I can make these changes and I can do these things. I feel very stuck and very stagnant, and I'm not really sure what to do about that. So in any case, that's the state of affairs 1 year post-diagnosis. I have learned a lot about myself. I have learned that I was accommodating my neurodivergence well before I had a diagnosis for neurodivergence. And I think that has in some ways made my life a little easier post-diagnosis, because I kind of was already doing these things. But like I said, the learned helplessness, the feeling of loss, I'm in a huge transition period anyway without the autism and ADHD diagnoses on top of this, has kind of left me feeling a little lost, a little stuck right now in life, and that's just the reality of it. And I heard something the other day, the crappy childhood fairy, love her, but she was talking about people with CPTSD, and one of the things she said I had never heard before, and it really struck me, and it was that people with CPTSD often have fantasies or big dreams of becoming something major, of transforming all of their pain into this great success story. And I have to admit, it struck me because I have always wanted to be a before and after. Like, I wanted to be able to, even with this channel, with any content creation, to be able to come on here and go, oh, this was me a few years ago, and look how I was struggling, and look how I overcame it. And that feeling that I can't really present myself until I have overcome it, whatever it is. But now I've kind of reached the reality that, yeah, oh, wow, that was kind of a CPTSD thing, and that I may never overcome. I may never be this great before and after, this triumphant, oh, look what she's done despite all of her hardships kind of person. I might just be that person that is constantly struggling through hardships, and that's kind of something that's hard to accept. But I think that's just life, and that's reality, and that's one of those kind of malignant fantasies that I have to let go of, because I don't have to be some great recovery story. I don't have to be some great, oh, look how much better I am now than I was. Because, yeah, I am better now than I was, but I still have a whole new set of problems now that I didn't have when I was that other person. So, something to consider. Maybe in your own life, maybe that'll strike some of you out there too, because I know a lot of you have CPTSD as well watching this. And if you did hang out with me today, thank you. Thank you. Again, I'm sorry for the piss poor video quality. It is what it is right now, and we're just out here doing the best we can. So I hope you're doing the best that you can too. I hope things are going well for you and your life. Let me know in the comments. And let me know if you have received a diagnosis, however long ago that may have been. What do you think the biggest change for you has been since your diagnosis? I think the biggest change for me is giving myself more grace. Learning to not be so hard on myself, to reduce the perfectionism, to just realize that this is just how I operate sometimes. And some days are going to be difficult. And some things are going to be harder for me than others. And just being okay with that. So I would love to hear one of the things that having a diagnosis or coming to the understanding that you are autistic or ADHD or both has given you. What is one thing that has really changed in your life? So give me some positive inspiration. I need it. I know everybody else can use it too out there in the comments. So thank you for listening. Thanks for joining me today. I always appreciate anybody who watches these terrible little videos, and I will see you in the next one.